Good morning. Buenos dias a todos nuestros amables oyentes. Buongiorno. Guten Morgen. True on true. My name is Chris Pavon, and this is the Lowdown on Lower Decks here on Movers and Shakers Unlimited. Don't touch that mouse because you are not seeing singular, pun intended. My co-host Joss is not here with us this Sunday, but he'll be back with us next week. So we are here to talk about episode 8, Caves, which, while it doesn't advance the main storyline, but it does give us very good insight into character development of our four main characters. Because when we think about the previous episodes this season, rarely have we seen all four of them together, which sort of has been a consequence of the promotions that they've received. And this episode touches about it a little bit. So with that, let's go straight forward, engage, and we have all four of our main characters, Rutherford, Tandy, Mariner, and Boimler, all discovering that they're going down to the same away mission on the planet Grodinus, which is to explore a cave. And as Mariner notes, not another cave mission. Nothing ever goes well with cave missions. Tandy, always enthusiastic, says, no, things are going to go well here. But no, of course it does not, because almost within instance of them beaming down and discovering this green moss, there's a message from the Cerritos saying, get out of there, there's going to be a cave in, and then they lose communication, everything goes dark, and then Merida, of course, asks the question, do you wanna, should I give you my I told you so separately or just all in a group? So yes, they are trapped, and to make things worse, the moss that had gone there to study is a person-eating moss. As they discover as Tandy gets her boot eaten, and the moss is advancing. So they have to figure out how to escape from the cave and how to avoid getting eaten by the moss, which of course brings in turn, each of them has had cave experiences. So they rely on each other to tell each other about their cave experience to see if they can get a glimmer out of one of their previous adventures of how to get out of this. And so Boimler's up first, and Boimler relates of how he had gone on a mission with everyone's favorite conspiracist on the Cerritos. And they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you went with Levy. Levy, as some of you may remember, is the guy who thinks there's a conspiracy about everything. And so he also just happens to be an expert on the Vendalorians, which is going to come in handy later. But in their scenario, there's a storm, they get trapped in a cave, and Levy is like, okay, this is Vendalorians all around, we've got to be careful. And the only thing worse about a conspirator that won't let go is being stuck by yourself with a conspirator who won't let go. And Brumley's like, okay, let's just go into this cave, seek refuge, see if there's anything we can find to get us out of here. And they get a faint energy signal, and Boimler goes to investigate it. But again, Levi's like, no, that was classic Vendalorians. Like, they want to separate us. And they find a dune buggy, which is reminiscent of the ill-fated movie Nemesis, where we see Picard driving a dune buggy. And so Boimler's like, yeah, this is great. We're going to ride this, and that's going to provide us with enough shielding from the radiation outside to make it back to our shuttle. And then Boimler realizes, well, there's only room for like one person. And before he can even decide or even pull rank about it, like he's the one who's going to drive the vehicle to the shuttle and then bring it back to the cave, Levi destroys it. And he's like, what are you doing? And Levi's like, this is a typical morality, excuse me, morality trap for the Vendalorians. It's a test. And Boimler says, the only test here is like my having to put up with you. And like, that's the one thing all the people in the ship are probably grateful for, that you're not there with them right now. And like, Levi's like, but I just want to like, be friends with people. And it turns out he's right, because the Vendalorians, who are sort of like the founders, and they have mimetic abilities, they show up, they're part of the cave, and like, you failed our test. To the pit with you. And they're thrown into a pit, and, Levi's like, oh my God, they've chained us together because they're going to put their baby sacks in our necks, and then we'll have to look at each other as they explode out of them. But Boimler manages to win them over by saying, oh, but did you know that Levi here is an expert on things about you? And so they're very curious and they end up all having like dinner together. And the Vandalorian's like, we really didn't participate in starting the Klingon Civil War. Like, you do have a lot of knowledge about us, but a lot of it is hyperbole. And um, then they manage to like get out of that situation. And the end result of this is that all the lower deckers are horrified to listen, like, you're hanging out with Levy? And even more horrified to listen to, like, oh my God, who are you? You're hanging out with Levy and you're going to the holodeck with him, and you never told us any of this. How could you not tell us this? So then the story moves on to Rutherford. And Rutherford talks about he and Dr. T'Lana also get trapped in a cave. But even worse for Rutherford is Rutherford gets impregnated with an alien baby, because who on Star Trek has not at some point or another got impregnated, with an alien baby? So yes, Rutherford as a guy does give birth in the cave, and he and Dr. T'Lana are trapped in there with a monster, because again, if you're trapped in a cave, you have to have a monster of some type, whether it's person eating moss or it's a one-eyed monster. But in the end, Rutherford uses his abilities to communicate, his technical abilities to communicate with the Beast, and the Beast says, like, listen, no, I am here just to protect my offspring, which is in this pool, which they had gone to because Billups, of course, had gotten some type of rare infection. They needed the plant life that grew in this cave to like save him. And the Beast's like, listen, no, like, we're good. I don't want to eat you. I'm just protecting my own kin. Which is a good point about like how misunderstandings can blow up. And the Beast helps them get out of the cave system. And the lower deckers are horrified. They're like, how could you not tell us you had a baby before? Like, we're all best friends. We tell each other everything. He's like, well, this just happened, and I'm telling you now. Which then leads to Mariner. And Mariner's tale is about how she went on an away mission with Delta Shift. Yes, we have the return of Delta Shift. And so they crash land on a planet, and they take refuge in a cave, and the cave has temporal radiation emitting from different parts of it, which is aging them. But it has Gamma-mite in it, and Gamma-mite could be used to help boost up the communicators so they could communicate with the Cerritos so that they could get beamed out of there. The catch is, as they try to get to the Gamma-mite, the radiation ages them more and more. So Mariner and her equivalent on Delta Shift are both like, we're going to go there and we'll age, but that's okay because we're going to come back. But no, it's just the aging effect is too quick. And each of them have a heart-to-heart at that moment. And basically Delta Shift is saying, like, no one pays attention to us because, like, you would Delta Shift, like, you guys get all the attention, you get the promotions, and like, we're just basically left to clean up your mess at the end of the day, and no one sees us. And we work just as hard as you all, but no one ever notices. And they also try, while they age very fast and they can no longer advance, they call upon the youngest of the Delta Shifters to come and try and get it. And he gets past them a little bit, but he also ages quickly, breaks his leg, and all seems lost until the remaining person on Delta Shift says, hey, wait a minute. Over here, there's temporal radiation, but it de-ages you. And so they managed to all finally get to the Gamma-mite thanks to the de-aged member of Delta Shift and get out of there. Horror among everyone. Like, you hung out with Delta Shift. How could you hang out with Delta Shift? Those guys are terrible. Like, they're totally the antithesis of us. You should not be hanging out with Delta Shift. And they're really griping about each other, and they can't like work together. And the moss is growing, getting closer and closer to them. Until finally comes Tendi's story. And Tendi has been trying to talk about her story, which is trapped in a turbo lift, and everyone has been telling her, no, Tendi, that story is about a turbo lift. This is about caves. But finally, Tendi tells her story, and it's about how there was a rage virus in the Cerritos, and thankfully been cured. They get on the turbo lift, but all four of them get trapped in the turbo lift, and this is just when they started 4 years ago to work together. And they contact Billups, and Billups is like, yeah, we're going to get you out of there soon. There's just some problems. Who doesn't get stuck in a turbo lift also in Star Trek? And there's three things in Star Trek. Like, you will at some point get impregnated with an alien species. You'll get trapped in a turbo lift, and the bridge is the easiest part of the ship to take over. So if any of you out there thinking there's another always happens in Star Trek, please feel free to let us know in the chat. Anyhow, Tendi's story is different from all the others because it talks about how they worked together and they got to know each other and they got out of a tight situation together. And they even have a laugh when they talk about how at the end Shax does like all of a sudden throw open the doors and says like, "I'm here to rescue you," and scares the crap out of all of them. And so this brings to they've now been trapped by the Moss. They're against a wall, literally, and Tendi's story makes them realize how well they work together and how they're friends. And the Moss then begins to communicate with them and says, "I like that story. Tell me more stories." And it turns out that the Moss, they can communicate with it just like Rutherford had communicated with his beast in his cave. And the Moss just wants to hear more of these stories. And then you pan outwards a bit, and it's of Endorians. And this has been another test. And they have successfully passed the test. And they say, "So we free them now." And one of the Mandalorians says, "No, let's let them have this moment a little bit more." And scene. So that was Caves, and it really is a look at understanding how situations may seem to change relationships. And so I'll talk about that more in the Gorn segment. But for right now, some of the good that I really liked was, it had been a while since we'd seen all four of them together throughout the episode. I mean, we've seen them paired up in different ways. We've seen trios throughout the episode, like when they went to Tendi's planet. But we haven't really seen all four of them together. So while you could view this as a bit of a filler episode, right? Because it doesn't advance the main plot line. But I would argue it advances the series because it really focuses on the relationship of all four of them and how it may have changed, the perception of change after they've all been promoted to Lieutenant Junior class. So I love that. I also love that we got a mention in the episode of Perdium. For those of you who are long Trek fans out there, you might recognize Perdium was the mineral mined in Devil in the Dark, one of the best episodes of classic Star Trek. So it was nice to see that. And again, one thing about Lower Decks is so many Easter eggs and how they pay homage to so many things that has come before. Because let's face it, Trek has a rich history, and sometimes it can be almost too rich that something is mentioned and then never mentioned again. So one of the strengths of Lower Decks, which is the good, is their ability to go back and see things that were mentioned many years ago and bring them back to us. So the return of Delta Shift. I especially like this because Delta Shift, we know they're their nemesis. They battle them for like the better quarters, and ultimately they, when they got the promotions, also got the better quarters as well. But Delta Shift is such a rich rivalry that we needed to see them again, and so we have, and that was really good. And it was also good to see how they finally hashed out why are they their nemesis? Like, what is it that turns each one off of the other? And who hasn't worked a day shift and a night shift where the day shift and the night shift seem to be at odds with one another? And especially the night shift, people feel that because the bosses are not there with them, they don't get the recognition that they need. Like, I myself worked on a situation where there's a night shift and day shift, and it just seemed that we were cleaning up literally after the other. So I think this is a situation that we encounter also like in our world. So I thought that was great. And who doesn't have a fear of getting stuck in an elevator? What's the first thing when we think about getting stuck in an elevator turbolift? Like, oh my God, did I go to the bathroom? Will I have to go to the bathroom now? I mean, as it's Halloween and as fears go, I would rank that being stuck in an elevator ranks really high up there. So if you're watching this and you have other suggestions about things that really cause fear in you or just scare the pants out of you, let us know. And again, one of the good things is we often see what's happening, like the big missions of the Lower Deckers. But in between, there has to be some side missions. And so we get to see the side missions that the Lower Deckers have been on and how different each one has been. But it's nice to see sort of like what happens in between the episodes. So it was good to see them having what each of them do, or how they interact with the other cast members. So what is the bad? It's hard to find the bad in Lower Decks. Lower Decks is really, really good. So I'm going to have to use a little bit of personal bias here and say that no T'Lyn. I mean, National has been 3 episodes, 1, 2, 3, where we are boldly going nowhere because we don't have, at least with T'Lyn is involved. And T'Lyn is a great character. I'm glad they made the addition. She has really shined in the episodes that she's had before. I'm hoping the final 2 episodes that we will get to see more T'Lyn. The main plot was not advanced. Again, this is a bit of a filler episode in that sense that we do not get to see what is happening with the ships being kidnapped. I think that guarantees that episodes 9 and 10 will be focused mainly on this. So in that sense, you know, the plot line was not advanced. Another bad thing, folks, the less spoken about Star Trek Nemesis, the better. I mean, so when I saw that buggy, I immediately thought, oh my God, it's Nemesis. Nemesis is a terrible movie. I mean, it's not Star Trek 5 terrible, but it's a close runner-up. And just seeing that Dune buggy, I'm like, oh no. So any reference of Nemesis, much like any reference of Star Trek 5, which is rumored to have happened, never really happened. It was just like, no, absolutely not. So the Gorn of this week's episode. I think the Gorn is really the focus on how does promotion affect friendships. And in this case, I'm saying the promotion to lieutenant junior grade, but in a real world scenario, I think it also reflects on what happens when friends move from, let's say, high school to college. What happens when neighbors that are friends move away from one another? What happens when people you know very well at a job move on to another job? I mean, they're still friends, but now they experience different things separately rather than what they used to together. Like they're no longer getting together for lunch to laugh about the latest thing that happened. They're no longer getting together at one's house to talk about the latest things happening in the neighborhood. I mean, the episode is really about interaction, and how things do change. And that's okay because life is about change. Growth and evolution is about change. Nothing stays the same, and it shouldn't stay the same. I mean, things should evolve. I mean, friendships should evolve. Circumstances change, but not because of that do the relationships themselves should they change. It's okay to experience things differently from one another person. I mean, again, we are to some extent, as the episode of Next Generation said, a tapestry composed of different moments, which contribute to the greater whole. And it's about understanding and acceptance of this. And I think this is what the episode did brilliantly, because at the start, everyone is horrified to hear, like, you're doing things without me. You're not doing this with me. How could you? Which is, I think, a knee-jerk reaction that sometimes we all experience. Like, how could you go to this without me? Why didn't you call me? But then gradually, Tendi is the catalyst within the episode to show that it's okay for these things to happen. We're still friends. I mean, like, you're still enjoying separate experiences, but that doesn't mean we can't all still get together. So I was really glad to see this, because the question is, like, how has promotion affected them? Promotion has affected them because now they get to lead their own missions, like Mariner did with Delta Ship. They experience things separately, but they can still come together and like realize, like, we're still friends. And so that is what allowed them to pass the Vandalorian's test. And so now we get to forecast for what is coming next in the final 2 episodes. And yes, it is too bad that it is just 2 episodes left, because this is brilliant, and I'm afraid we're probably going to have a long wait, because once again, we're still in the middle of the actor strike. I mean, the writers are back, so that'll allow them to start penning some more Lower Deck episodes, but they won't actually be able to start, like, recording them until the actor strike is over. So we will have Star Trek Voyagers Voyager. Sorry. Anyway, tongue-tied. We will have a new Star Trek in February, but we won't have anything after that for probably quite a while. But anyway, theories that T'Lyn, we will see T'Lyn again, and her ship is going to be captured by whoever's taking the other ships, and that is going to bring into play T'Lyn once again. Other prediction that we will see a kiss between one of the 4 lower deckers. I don't know who it is. Right now, the episode seems to be leaning towards, the series seems to be leaning towards Tendi and Rutherford, but I think we are definitely going to see a kiss. And I think episode 10 is going to be a cliffhanger. Yeah, I think it's going to be. Which, given how long I just referenced, we're going to have to wait, it's going to be even harder to deal with. But that's the theories for what's coming up. If you have theories, feel free to drop it off either now or later on our channel. And for those of you who like Star Trek comic books, IDW is publishing this month some Halloween-specific Star Trek comic books. Halloween, as you might imagine, it's misadventures on, of course, the holodeck. One wonders why they have holodecks on these ships. They seem to be more causing more problems than good things. But if you like them, then go to your local comic book store and purchase a IDW Star Trek comic book. And so with that, Lower Decks is half an hour, as is our episode. So thank you again for choosing to watch us either live or later. Still counts. Always willing to go boldly nowhere, or perhaps with all of you somewhere. So until then, and a shout out to Josh, which will be back with us next week. I am Chris Pabon. You can find me on Instagram at Verde Cosplay. If you are a cosplayer in the DC area and you have been to a convention, it is very likely that I have taken your picture and I have posted it. So please feel free to look up my Instagram and see if you're there and tag yourself. Until next week, peace and long life. On behalf of Movers and Shakers Unlimited, this was the lowdown on the episode Caves of Star Trek Lower Decks. Peace and long life.